Howdy, y'all. I'm Ryan.
What did you just say?
Ryan, sorry, this is probably a pretty good time to say that I quit the podcast.
What did you say, hodl?
Howdy.
He said howdy y'all, but in the most French accent possible. Howdy y'all.
Yeah, do you find that that's the most French accent possible? That's just my accent.
Yeah, but like, y'all, you can't say y'all in an English or a French accent. It has to be
Okay,
y'all, right?
just say hello, because I can't keep looping the intro like this.
No, it's too late, man. This is your choice. We're just going with it. And I'm Ivan.
Thank you. And tonight we review Series 2 of the Traitors US on the only podcast by the people who've been there, done that, and got a t-shirt. This is episode 32 of It's Just a Game. Welcome to episode 32 of It's Just a Game, the podcast where we watch reality TV so you don't have to, and the podcast where we review winning and losing strategies, the maddest moves, and the hottest goss of your favourite reality TV shows. This week, we could not help ourselves. Series 2 of the Traitors US has just dropped on BBC iPlayer. It is sensational, and as Traitors alumni, we're going to have to talk about this. But first, let's do some introductions. My name is Ryan, and I, for one, would definitely recognise my child if I had one with the Traitors cast member. Also joining me here is Wilf. Hello, Wilf. Would you recognise your child if you had one with the Traitors cast member?
Yeah, I'll probably look after it as well.
Wow, look at you. And also joining me is Ivan. Hello, Ivan.
Hello.
Would you recognise your child if you had one with the Traitors cast member?
Yeah, I support all of my 18 many children from different relationships and marriages, and I would, if I had another child with a member of cast from the UK from Traitors, I would do the same.
See, I guess it's not that hard then. Look at us.
It's elementary. Come on, just do the right thing.
Anyway, how are you, Wilf?
Oh, that was so funny. Just do the right thing, mate. If you're listening, do the right thing.
It's all right, he's not.
He's definitely not. But yeah, just a quick public safety message here. Anyway, how are you both?
I'm all right, apart from the sun picking up our podcast now.
What has the sun said about a podcast?
Oh, they're about to say that we took a dig at Conor Maynard, I think.
Yeah, if you're from the Metro Entertainment team, hello, good to see you again.
We are happy to comment on the situation if you do get in touch. No, I'm joking.
We'd like to say at this stage that Conor Maynard has been contacted for comments and declined to reply. He has not. Anyway, as always, let's get into this. We are entering a spoiler zone. If you have not seen episodes 1 to 6 of the Traitors US Series 2, go away and come back when you're done. What we're going to do is, let's not lie, we've watched the whole thing. But this is part 1. We're going to focus on episodes 1 to 6, so there's not going to be any spoilers of episodes 7 to 11. Now, if like us, you have seen them, stay right here. But if you haven't, Ivan, the man, he's back and he's doing his usual segment. His recurring segment, his recurring segment, which I haven't actually checked and prepared it. But Ivan, what's been going on, Ivan?
Ivan, what's been going on, Ivan?
Did you go Dutch there? Right? Sure,
Into on the spot.
Hyphen, what's going on, hyphen? Here we go, with my checkment. Episode 1. 1 million Americans arrive in our castle, as well as Ekin-Su and John Burko. We watch them recognise each other, which must be nice for them. Alan Cumming picks Dan and Phaedra, just 2 traitors, but they must immediately recruit. Did Alan lift his arm near Parvati? Did John do heavy breathing? They did not. It's the lake puzzle mission from Series 2. They finish with exactly 1 second to spare. Sorry, I don't know why I suddenly coughed there. 3 players get a shield and they all go home. That's it, episode 2. Johnny Bananas is murdered, along with all of his bananas. Parvati is recruited, great pick. Trishelle thinks it's Peppermint because of a reaction to a comment last night, and she makes it worse with a slip of the tongue. A bunch thinks it's John because of his asthma. The task is the Scarecrow task. At the round table, the pile of invisible biscuits is too crummy for Peppermint, who's almost unanimously banished, and walks away with Sachet, 2 faithfuls down. Walks away with Sachet. I think sachets away is the phrase. Come on, Ivan, get with it. Episode 3. The traitors murder Marcus. Probably wise. And at the breakfast, his partner Tamra fully accepts that he's dead. It's cute. Dan is brought up for the first time and Parvati must decide if she wants to defend him. Deontay Wilder from the boxing thinks it's Max from the dancing. The task is the graveyard spotlight one. Tamra, Peter, Janelle get shields, but the latter has to wrestle Ekin-Su for it. It's quite dramatic. Peter and Kevin agree to vote for each other. Super smart. I've been advocating for this. Let's talk about it. To raise low-level suspicion on each other, but don't preface it with any accusations at the round table. Not super smart. It's Max who's banished, causing Deontay to cry with guilt and leave the game. Next, it's the Chalice murder task, which Parvati does brutally well. After a few false starts, the target is Ekin-Su. Episode 4. Ekin-Su drinks from Parvati's cup. Apparently Parvati panicked. Alan Cumming just announced Deontay quit the game. At breakfast, Ekin isn't dead because it's the funeral task. Is it the edit or does Parvati fully give it away? It's the edit. Dan and Parvati plan to turn on Phaedra. Ekin-Su dies. The housewives want to go to CT, so Sandra plans to countervote Larsa. Parvati sees the idea of Phaedra by mentioning it must be one of the housewives. Clever. Larsa is banished. And Phaedra in the tower tells Parvati nobody likes her. Almost there. Episode 5. They kill Tamra to confuse the housewives' idea. Peter tricks the traitors into thinking he and Janelle have the shield by telling the people he suspects. Janelle guns for Dan because he's sitting back. Correct. Kate Chastain joins the game. Dan gets a bunch of votes. Janelle gets more and is banished. And in episode 6, Peter's trap works and they went for Bergie. Bergie didn't die. No murder. Peter is hard focused on Dan and Parvati correctly, and Social reads that CT is faithful, unreal, faithful play. The task is the catapult on a hill. Dan bargains with Peter to let him cook at the table. Not literally cook, Wilf, come on, I mean in the modern way where you let me cook. And accuses Phaedra, citing her weird vote for Ekin-Su and her breakfast reactions. He's bang on, but it doesn't work. Dan is voted with an overwhelming majority, but Trishelle picks up that Phaedra was Dan's attempt to sell out a traitor. No traitor is unharmed here. All three are crippled. The traitors try to seduce Peter to join them, and we'll find out what happens next episode. And that's where we are now.
Great, Shamari. Now, this is a great series, and you can tell from the start how much money they've put into this. They've got flag carriers, they've got drummers, bagpipes, they've got a dog budget, and it wasn't just the one dog, it was several dogs throughout the series. Honestly, it was a several dog budget. So, like, sensational series. I've been finding it fantastic. Now, I'm just going to get it out of the way net first. That's the question I always ask you, and I'm going to ask this now. Favorite player, least favorite players. Your overall views so far. It's a competitive cast, so it's a tricky question. Wilf.
My favorite player changed. Obviously, it was going to be Deontay Wilder because he's from boxing background, hence why I liked him. And I felt really sorry for him. I think somebody who stands in the middle of a ring and puts his life on the line, to find playing the traitors harder than that, it just shows how hard the game is itself. So it started with Deontay, but my favorite player is Peter because of his gameplay. And I think he's gone full out. I'm going 100 miles an hour and I'm not going to slow down. And sometimes that's great, but it puts a target on your back massively. And then my least favorite player is, I haven't got a least favorite player in the first 6 episodes. I think there's no one I dislike or think they're rubbish. I don't mind.
I can't think of a person or two, but Ivan, what about you?
At this point, I think I was most interested in watching Parvati. I think she did a couple of really good things in the first few episodes. I think she's quite savvy in her way to deal with the murdering in plain sight. And I thought that bringing up the 4 desperate housewives, or real housewives, whatever they're called, but not directly accusing Phaedra, was quite an interesting strategy to seed belief that it's someone else without selling out another traitor. What we saw with Dan was that Dan, as soon as he was accused, went for Phaedra. As soon as Dan was voted out, it took Phaedra down too. I think that we now know this is it's what everyone does all the time. So she was trying something different. So I think that was quite clever. I definitely think on the faithful side, we're supposed to at this point really, really support Peter. He's done a couple of clever things, that mutual suspicion, which I want to talk about later, and also the big trap, which I think we'll have to break down. He comes across as really likable. I think Bergie, also Trishelle, come across really likable. Yeah. I have to say, there's a lot of really unlikable characters. And I don't mean you hate them. I just mean there's nothing to make you like them. And I think this is just a thing of them having been on TV for a very long time in America. And all of the kind of youthful, wonderful loveliness has kind of gone out of them and been replaced by recognition factor, which doesn't work for us. So rather than having a single person I don't like, I think there are some little really interesting hotspots for people who I really do like. Having watched Parvati and Sandra on Survivor, I know what I'm dealing with them. Sandra doesn't come across brilliantly. I think Parvati at this point in the series really does come across very well.
Mm. Yeah, you know what? That's fair enough. I do really like Parvati. But since you already said her, I'm just going to go, you know what, John Burko, what is he doing there? Like, the man get lost on the M25, accidentally took a turn, ended up in Inverness, and just, what is he doing there? Like, seeing him just walking through a castle and scream at everyone at the round table, order, that just gave me life.
It's high camp, and he does it so well. He's really into it. Like, he isn't in no way being like, yeah, whatever, I'm here, I don't care when I go home. He really wants to win. It's wonderful to watch.
Yeah. Now, a controversial, less favourite one, I think, is Phaedra.
Oh, that is controversial.
I think this is controversial, but the thing is, I don't actually think her gameplay is that good. She just sort of flies under the radar at a time when there's a lot of people in the radar because there's still a lot of people left. And then she starts being named, and when she does, she kind of scrambles. She gets very aggressive, very personal, very fast, telling Parvati, oh, nobody likes you. It's just like, there's a lot of high horse moments, and all of that just makes me feel like, well, it's just a game. Like, it's what you're playing. That
yeah. I don't know. I feel with Phaedra, she does it really well. You know, when like people go to have these really weird, awkward conversations, she goes, I don't want to be a part of this, and sort of removes herself from it. So she can't say she was in any of these weird conversations, which is great. But then it gets to a point where you're not actually you're not giving anything to anybody, where they're going to go, well, what are you doing here? What's the point in you being here? You know, you don't want to get to that point when you're not actually helping the faithfuls. If you fly too under the rate, too much under.
Which is what happens to Dan, and we'll get back to this in a minute. But let's start with the early days in the castle. Now, look, we've been over this. We've been over the strategies. It's the same usual scramble. The accusations are baseless. John's got asthma. Sue's being accused because she calls somebody selfish. How dare she? I mean, Alan lifted his vest at the wrong time and somebody heard the shuffle of the fabric. Like, all of this is pretty insane. And then we've got an early recruitment, something that's new this year, which is actually really interesting. Parvati, early recruitment. Good choice, bad choice. How do we feel about this? I kind of get why they're doing this. And she's an excellent player. She's got a reputation in Survivor. But if I'm a traitor and I get to recruit her, I would actually think that makes her particularly dangerous. And I might think I want to go for still a good player, but slightly less dangerous player, because I do know that at some point the traitors are going to start fighting each other. And when they do, I don't think I want to be fighting Parvati.
I think it depends if you're Dan or Phaedra. If you're Dan, you might recruit Parvati because you can think you can turn against Phaedra and be as a 2, which is very powerful. 3 is really not very powerful, as we know. I think if you're Phaedra, you probably want to try and recruit someone else from a different segment of the game, maybe John, maybe someone like that. I think I hear what you're saying, though. Why would you recruit somebody who is known for her amazing ability to survive everything and backstab everyone, and do it with aplomb and do it with complete confidence in herself? Wilf, what do you think?
I think it was a good choice, but a bad choice at the same time. I think it was a bad choice because, like you're saying, she's very, very capable of playing that role and doing it, and you've just got to know you're going to have to fight her at some point, and that's not a great thing to do. But at the same time, it's a good idea as a scapegoat, because you have that reasoning if you're trying to backstab her to say, look, she's been doing this for years. Like, if anybody can do it, she can do it, right? So do you know what I mean? There's an argument there where you could say, look, she does it all the time, sort of thing. So
yeah.
Do you think someone like Trishelle would have been a pretty good pick there?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I reckon, because she's also just a gamer. She knows how to sort of like get out of that kind of sticky situations, but perhaps she doesn't feel quite as threatening. She doesn't seem to have quite the same aura as Parvati, which, you know, Parvati can get numbers behind her, and I think that's what would make her dangerous. So yeah, perhaps a better choice, yeah.
Either her or Janelle, Big Brother. I think you want to get a gamer. I think maybe a woman. I think one of those two would have been good, but actually I think within those 3... Maybe 4, maybe Sandra as well, because we know Sandra can do it. She's cutthroat. Yeah,
Sandra's cutthroat, but I don't think she really, throughout the game, we see so far that she kind of struggles to make any sort of meaningful alliance. She's kind of left out of all the groups in a way, which I think means that perhaps are the best traitor to get.
And that's really weird, because in the Survivor that I've seen, because I've seen her first season, and I'm about to watch the Micronesia one, which I think she's in as well. She's really good at making alliances with the right people, and that's her thing, right? She's the first ever 2-time winner of the game, and she doesn't do it through hard strategy, like Siri. Her game is much more about strong but well-picked alliances, and I think she just didn't get the right people to ally with in this game.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best pick in Sandra. Yeah, one of the other three, I think.
And I guess part of the challenge for her is that obviously her main connection is Survivor, and so that means her main connection is Parvati, which is kind of always hard because if you suspect early on she's a traitor, and just the mere fact she's a traitor, even if you don't suspect it, makes it perhaps more difficult to build that sort of alliance that she would have needed.
And they're massive rivals. They hated each other.
Yeah.
So, like, you don't come in and be like, oh, you're my best mate. You're like, oh, I hate you.
But now, while we're talking about the pick of traitors, I do want to open up to another debate, which is that it feels like in this version of the show, in the US version, metagaming plays a much, much bigger role. At some point, Parvati says something really interesting at the round table, which is there's got to be a housewife who's a traitor. One of them's got to be a traitor. And yeah, she does kind of have a point. From a meta point of view, it's brilliant. And so I do find it really interesting. Like, it's sort of the weaknesses, perhaps, of this US version. You can metagame. You can think about who the traitors are just by their history because you know them. You know who they are as people.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a great idea to do it. I mean, you can be outplayed for sure, but you can go based on numbers, right? I don't think I remember any series where they've all been either all men or all women at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
They've made it that way through, banishment and recruitment. I think if you've got four people all from the same genre of show, all in the same kind of like societal group, and one of them is not a traitor, it would be so weird. And they'd have such a power block as well. So yeah, I think it was a great bit of play by her for sure.
They're metagamers, a lot of them, because they know what they're doing, right? So it's when you look at the UK version where it is just members of the public that probably have never played a social deduction game to this magnitude, they have to figure it out as they go along, where the US cast are like, you've got to look at Survivor. And I only found out the other day, this is for UK listeners actually, that their Big Brother is completely different to ours, that I didn't know.
Oh, it's completely different. There's no public vote. It's much more like the other social strategy games like The Challenge and Survivor, which is all about navigating the social thing, becoming head of household, and then having all the powers to vote people off.
So that's why I was really confused when they kept saying, but you won Big Brother and you never received a vote and all of this stuff. Because for me, I was like, well, what's that mean?
Like in our Big Brother, people just sit in a house for 2 months.
Yeah, sit in a house for 2 months.
Yeah, it's a totally different show. Ryan, can we talk about Peter's 2 traps, please? In order, because I think they need the most chat in this entire episode.
Well, let's talk about them then, because Peter, honestly, we've talked about how much as a person as well, he's just generally great to watch. I've loved watching him.
I mean, he's fit, right? I mean, that's the first thing he's very watchable because he's fucking gorgeous.
You can't complain about that. But also just generally, like, the gameplay is sensational. He's a sort of like agent of chaos. Is he agent of chaos? I would have loved to be on that show. Like the way he just says, oh, well, I don't need the money. I don't need to care that much. I know I'm on my way out. I might as well just burn everything on my way out. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, let's take these one by one because they each deserve their own a bit of attention. The first thing he does quite early on, I think it's episode 3, is he gets him and I think it's Max together. Is it? No, it's Kevin. Peter and Kevin.
Yeah.
He gets Kevin in the kitchen room and he says, let's vote for each other to arouse a tiny bit of low-level suspicion and stop us from being murdered. Now, you'll remember I've been saying this as a strategy to you on this podcast, and it hasn't been done a lot or at all, or at least it hasn't been shown to have been done. It may have been done, but as always, there's a chance that whatever you do doesn't get shown on the show. This is really, really good, but it's not executed perfectly because while they do vote for each other, we don't see them accuse each other. Again, that may not be the case. That may be the edit. But what we see is Kevin and Peter vote for each other, and that's
brilliant.
It could be. It could be brilliant. It really could be brilliant. It is certainly what we saw happen in the UK series too, where players like Zach and Jasmine always had low-level suspicion on them. And therefore, they just never got voted out. They occasionally got a vote, maybe 2, maybe 3, but never that many. And they never got murdered because the traitors went, leave them. They'll go anyway. It's the perfect place to be. In concept, great. In actuality, was it good? Up to you.
In my view, as a faithful, I've always thought if I ever played this game again as a faithful, it is single-handedly the most important strategy in my view. I would have rather, people might think staying quiet, staying under the radar is actually strategy. It's not, because this will come and bite you, and when it does, you won't be able to defend yourself. Whereas if you really early on get a very low level of suspicion on you, get your name out there, and perhaps the best way to do that is sort of get a nemesis, go all in, attack somebody who you think is probably not a traitor, but at least, it means you're putting yourself out there. it will, as long as your name is mentioned in that room, then you're relatively safe from the traitors. And I think that is single-handedly the most important thing to do if you're faithful in this game, other than find traitors. And actually, even find traitors is not that important at the early stages of the game. Staying alive is.
I mean, Wilf, it worked for you, right?
Yeah, well, there's two things I was about to say. Because obviously being in the turret, you discuss everyone, right? When you don't just discuss 3 people like it shows in the edit, you will discuss every single person, the pros, the cons. Why would you get rid of them? Why you wasn't? And one of the people that came up in every conversation was Faye. Because Faye always had people going on because her reactions, they were like, but that's just her, right? So people would be like, Faye, because you're very over dramatic or whatever. And she always got a vote here and there, especially early on. So we just let her in because we were like, people eventually will go for her. So let's just keep her in. And she lasted to what, episode 10? Like, that's a long game. Like, and it happened with me. Like, I always had Maddie going for me, which that's why I never murdered her. I was like, I'm going to keep her in, let her keep voting for me.
But there is another element to this strategy as well. We're talking about being accused low level is good. Also, being loudly wrong is another great murder avoidance strategy. If you can be loudly wrong about someone, you're probably not going to get murdered. Now, this meta might change, by the way, because if everyone starts doing this, which I don't know if they will, but if everyone starts doing this, then they'll start picking up on it. But for now, it's a double-edged sword. No, that sounds like it's a good and a bad thing. It's a double-bladed. Well, it's Darth Maul in the first prequel, right? I feel I've got the defense of being wrong, and I've got the other defense of being suspected. It's great.
It's again one of the things I regularly think about when I lie in bed at night, thinking about what I would do differently if I played the game, and going all wrong on someone would probably be like the first thing I do. Perhaps not in the first round table, but the second round table, I'm going all in on Wilf. I'm like, look, if I'm wrong, you can vote me out tomorrow. You've got to go for it. And
it's, but like talking about these sort of strategies, I feel like the meta will definitely change because at the moment, the meta is who did vote the traitor out, because they're more suspicious than anyone. Like a traitors, they turn on them. So they look at the traitors now and they're starting to do it a lot more, especially in this season. And that's new, but people are going to pick up on that a lot. So we're going to see a shift in like traitors going, actually, I can't vote for that person because they'll think, traitors vote for that person. Then they'll vote for someone random maybe. And they'll be like, why did you vote for that person when you said it could be that person? So there's so much stuff that could possibly happen when they start trying to change it. Yeah.
The only thing about that is obviously Dan can say what he wants. If Dan's going home, he knows it doesn't matter what he says because he can't win the game. So because this is not a team game but a single player game, it doesn't matter what you say if you're about to get banished. Parting gift. So I think like that is all very well. That's all true. But equally, it only really matters what you say so long as you stay in the game. And that will always mean that some traitors will sell out other traitors, even though we now know being a traitor hunter is a red flag.
I did like the whole Dan. It was Dan, yeah. So Dan goes to everyone. They were like, "You're not voting. You're not putting out names out there." And he goes, "I'm waiting till I think someone's 100%, and then you'll hear my opinions." I knew he thought that at the beginning, and he's already thought about backstabbing the traitors. And he's like, "That's who I'm going to throw under the bus when I need to." I thought it was great, man. That great strategy. He was just executed very poorly, but I think his strategy of going, actually, let me get my own opinions on someone and then I'll give you it. And if it was strong enough, and everyone said that Phaedra was amazing at that round table. I didn't see that. No. I didn't really see that.
Again, I think it was just a case of, it was easy for her to be shown as the winner of that argument because she already had the support in the room, the sort of indefectible support in their room that meant that there were always going to be a large number of people in the room who were going to be siding with her, no matter, even if she showed up with a bloody knife and a cloak in the room.
Yeah. Let's talk about the second strategy element, Peter's second trap, which is obviously far, far better and ultimately incredibly effective. My argument here, and I'll go over it in a second, is actually it's not as perfect and inescapable as he made it out. It worked, but there are ways in which it might not have. So here's the plan. Brody, Bergie, Boogle, what's his name? Bondi? Boogie?
Burgalicious,
thank you, wins the shield. But only the 6 people who went outside know that. So he sells the story to 3 people, CT, Parvati, and Dan, that actually he's got it, although those 2 have it. Okay, so then he's saying that means that if the traitors go for anyone else, then that shows the traitors know. Well, the traitors would never go for somebody. The traitors would probably go for somebody inside the house because they know that no one inside the house can have a shield. So yes, he's right. If the traitors go for someone who went outside during the task, that shows they have confidence in knowing that one of them doesn't have the shield. But still, that's 4 people. And even when 2 of them have the shield, that isn't 100% guaranteed to work. There's even reasons, as we've said before, why traitors would want to kill somebody who has the shield to make it look like a recruitment has either tried or failed to happen. The thing that makes it really good is that Bergie then goes and tells, who does he tell? He tells someone, is it Dan? That he's already on his slate the next day, right? That's the killer. Because Bergie says that privately to Dan, and Dan goes, well, he's got to die. Bergie knows he can't die. So if he says something about tomorrow, I'm fucking you up, it's hilarious because he knows he can actually do that because he has the shield. That, I think, was the nail in the coffin.
Brilliant strategy.
So it felt inescapable at the time. But even with all of this said, the traitors are unpredictable and any traitor could pick any person. So just because Peter had set up this wonderful trap, it didn't mean it had actually snapped closed on a traitor. It just meant that it likely to have.
He had to get lucky, but this was the brilliance of it. That's the brilliance of the plan. It worked. I was just in front of my TV praying it would. Wilf.
Yes, same. I feel like with that kind of strategy as well, I like the fact that it wasn't an accidental strategy, which we've seen in Traitors. Things unfold where they've accidentally done something and they're like, oh my God, now because of this, I'm able to do this. But they didn't necessarily plan it out. He planned it out so well, I think, anyway. And when it was executed, well, I was just mind blown. I was so desperate that it would work, and it worked.
There was clearly a lot of social reads in it too. Again, it just so happens his social reads were correct, which made it look all the more impressive. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't. It was a bloody great play. I think this was on the level of, or better than, Harry's play from season 2 with the shield bluff. But yeah, Ryan, what do you think?
No, I loved it. It was genius. Obviously, it's one of these insane gambits, but when it does work, it was just like beautiful to see. And it made sense, you know. I wish perhaps, we had seen a little bit more of an indication of why he actually went after these 4 people specifically, why these were suspicions. But, you know, again, he got 2 out of 3 right. It was great.
You might have said something in the missions that we didn't watch. I did definitely watch all of them.
I watched the missions. Because I actually love the missions in Traitors, and I know I will be the only person to die on that hill. It'll be a very lonely hill, but I love the missions. I watched it, and there was nothing there. I think it was just from playing the game.
Is there a catapult on that hill?
There is a catapult. Well, actually, it's a trebuchet. You'll find, despite calling it a catapult, it's a trebuchet.
Hey, Ryan, I think you're going to need to do us a missions update for me and Wilf and tell us if anything happened during those times that we need to know, because I get it. I love it. Thematically, it's always like a lovely sandwich, you know, like horrible killing bread, delicious mission jam, horrible killing bread. I get it, but I haven't got time in my life to watch those things.
Well, let me give you a summary of these missions. Mission 1, they built a giant beacon they set fire to in the middle of the lot, £50,000 won. Mission 2, there's 23 groups and that's a questionnaire where they play carry a bunch of
Oh wow.
Did you get all of that?
Well, I hope that was sped up fast enough that the listeners couldn't hear what happened after episode 6, because no spoilers, you idiot. Also, I feel like I'm listening to local radio. I'm about to go back and hear the traffic with Sharon.
And now the traffic with Sharon. There's some jams on the M25. Traffic is all good on the Metropolitan and Circle line with some major delays on the Northern line. Next to base in 10 minutes. And now brand new Taylor Swift coming up now on It's Just a Game FM.
So yes, that's the strategy. There were other good bits of strategy too, right?
They were well, one of the bits that may have been a good bit, because so far it's working, but I'm not sure whether in the long term it's a good bit, is the early alliances, the Bravo versus the rest of the world alliance. Do we think that's actually we've always said that alliances were dangerous, because if you're a traitor, you're going to see this, you're going to want to get rid of the alliance because it's threatening. But as it happens, we've got an alliance that's mostly run single-handedly by a traitor. And so I'm just thinking, actually, that alliance, great shout. I mean, it seems to work so far. So yeah, why not? Wilf?
I think the alliances work because it's voting power, isn't it? So it works. But then on the flip side, you've got the traitors that want to break you up. And one thing I just want to say, one thing. I think a lot of the strategic moves that Peter made got him his clan, and so strong like that. You know, when he did the whole shield thing, right? John then was on his side, and it was such a powerful ally to have next to him. And we see that, and we'll talk about John later on because he becomes more relevant like after episode 6, 7, doesn't he?
No, it's a really interesting approach. In a way, the Bravett crew just fell into the alliance, whereas Peter really earned his alliance. Yeah,
Yeah, I also want to talk about Ekin Sue.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about Ekin Sue. I'm not sure there was much to be said about her, but I'll hear it.
I have nothing to say.
It's just that we, as Brits, right, and let's hear it from a British perspective, right, because she's obviously a reality TV star from our country, and I think, did she go over and do Dancing with the Stars in America too? Anyway.
Maybe.
Whatever. It's a difficult thing. They clearly want to cast British people in this show, but they want people who can translate well into the kind of American TV thing. And I think John did that really well. I think Ekin knew from Love Island and everything else that people needed to see her being selfish and bratty and arrogant. And she did try. And I think she was trying to play a role. I think for her to survive longer, she'd have had to really compete with the American way of doing things, which is to show even less care and even less humanity.
Yeah, she was too nice for this game.
Yeah, I feel like do you know what? To be fair, it's hard. It would be hard for most people from the UK to be dropped on an American reality show and actually stand out. It'd be so hard.
That's what it felt like.
I do think you do start with a big benefit, which is that, you know, people, every time somebody makes any sort of argument based on your personality, you can just blame it on the cultural difference. You can just be like, oh no, that's how we do it in the UK.
But then there's an even more sort of eccentric Englishman in John.
Yeah.
I mean, so she was extraordinary in her series of Love Island. It's the only series of Love Island I've ever seen. And I was excited to see her being a horrible villain, basically. And she wasn't. She was just very mild and quite nice. And it was like, that's just a missed opportunity.
But John was so camp and so, I loved him so much.
Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the early signs of a traitor backstab. We seem to be, I think it's really interesting that in this series, in the US series too, the plot is a lot less centered about the backstabs. And I think it's just because the Faithfuls are doing it much more. Whereas one of the challenges I had watching the UK series was that the plot was just a loop of continuous traitors backstabbing one another, and it got a little bit repetitive towards the end. Here, that's not the center of the gameplay. We just get early signs of it at some point, but
it's because they're just better at the game, isn't it?
I'm really happy with that because I think the traitors backstabbing each other is a trope that gets old very quickly. It's never any different. It's always exactly the same. We know how it looks. The only time it's ever felt different was Sam in Australia series 2, which was completely different in its feeling. And I think really I would be bored of this format if I had just watched another series of the same old strategy.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad this one was different. We will always see traitors backstabbing each other because I feel like I might have said this before. It's not a team game, but it is boring.
It gives itself a shelf life, doesn't it? That's the problem.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why I was so glad I watched the series because I was like, you know what, actually, this show's still got a lot to can offer.
Well, they need to make it less of an optimal strategy then. If they want people to do something different, maybe they don't. Maybe they love it so much. But if they, like I, want that not to happen so often, they need to give some sort of viable alternative for a really, really prevailing strategy.
Well, what you do for the UK traders, you just put more mechanisms in there for them to make mistakes, right? Or to give away stuff and give actual biscuits and not invisible biscuits.
Yeah, so that Faithfuls have got more of it, so that the storyline becomes more about Faithfuls as well, finding traitors rather than traitors finding traitors.
Yeah, and that'll need to be audibles. Like, they didn't need to do any of that in this series because the Faithfuls were so good.
Yeah.
And so you just, you can't know before you go in how good they're going to be and what biscuits they're going to pick up on. So you've got to have audibles you can call. Yeah. Can I talk about something?
No.
Okay. Well, then listen. Hey, did you listen to the music?
Yes.
Are we talking about the custom soundtrack?
Yeah. They
at the round table.
Oh no, we can't use James Newton Howard's The Hanging Tree anymore. So let's get another composer to make a song that starts on the third line. It's the same tune but different words, and it's kind of also vaguely about death. And it's like, "Are you going to the valley where they killed a man on something?"
Can I just say one thing, Ivan? You've just ruined my intro for the next episode.
Oh shit! I'm so sorry. Well, okay, that'll reward people who listen to both episodes. This made me sick. I get it. I fully get it. Right? It felt like when you accidentally get the knockoff thing, the knockoff Pepsi, whatever
I
it is.
loved
The
it.
JJB sound. Do you remember JJB Sports? They used to, they didn't have the rights to music, so it was always like whip-off shit versions.
Exactly, yeah. Or like when you go to Georgia Fried Chicken, you're like, something's wrong here. It was like, I am not brand loyal, but this felt so annoying because actually it made me go back and think, they used this music cue in the UK series too. They didn't go to the same thing every time because the UK has this whole thing with doing like Toxic by Britney Spears, but sung by a anxious person. But the way that it kept going back to this song that was not even just like inspired by, it had the same chord sequence, it had the same strings, it had the
Yeah, it did.
I think Ivan is a secretly lawyer for the Hanging Tree.
Yeah, and my client James Newton Howard wants his revenge. It was so annoying. Just choose something different. If you can't have the song. Oh, we've got that song at home.
If you're listening to the podcast and you're part of the music team on this show, we'd just like to say, don't listen to Ivan. He's so fucking wrong. This is an amazing song. I want to hear it more often. I loved it. I even looked it up on Google to see if I could find it on Spotify before realizing it was a knockoff.
You're so tacky. I am going to the rock. Kill the man for wearing the wrong sock. It's like, stop. You can't. It's too similar. Stop it.
Anyway, I love the music. Don't listen to the haters. More of that, please, in Series 3. Now, I just want to get back to the sort of last big topic of this episode, which is about Dan's downfall. It was good. It was fascinating to watch. It was great to see Dan and Fitra go against one another. But I do want to ask, if you're Dan and you start in episode 6 knowing that people are coming after you, did he have a way out? Is there anything he could have done at the beginning of that day to make it so that he wouldn't get banished at the end of it?
I think he was in a very, very hard position, and it's so hard for you to go from being a complete suspect and knowing people are going to vote for you to turn that around. It's like one of the hardest things to do, and he tried it and it failed, but I felt quite sorry for him. I don't think there was in my opinion, I don't think he had the numbers to be able to come back.
What if he stitched up Parvati instead of Phaedra?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think this was probably his only way out. There was also a little bit of chat about Parvati at that point that he could have exploited. I think he instead went for the person that was really not suspected, which meant that he had a much higher hill to climb to get to the desired results. I think throwing Parvati under might have actually been a saving grace, but obviously she would have come out fighting too in that room.
Yeah, and you don't want to fight against her. I mean, counterpoint, Parvati survived that round table, and everyone still suspected her because of the shield play. There's no reason to think there's more than one traitor that Peter had trapped in that trap, but somehow they all believed it was all of them. So what Dan would need to do is make it seem like Parvati was the person who fell for the trap, and that he and CT were the ones who were unfortunately caught up in that trap.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really difficult stuff. He's never going to win the game. We know from that point he cannot win the game. But if he could get another 3 episodes, that would still be a massive success for him.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. What I loved about that round table, and quite a lot of them actually, was just watching John absorb everything. Like, he's just like, I've never seen any...
He's like a judge.
Yeah, he just absorbs everything constantly and remembers everything that people say, every little breath they take. If they slightly, he's just I love him.
I thought generally, I did wonder if the politics to Traitors parallel would hold, but actually he was brilliant, I think, as a player.
Yeah, he stopped, because didn't we have people in politics that weren't great or judge it? Like, we had people that were solicitors and lawyers and stuff.
We've had lawyers who were a bit shit on their game.
MK or whatever his name was.
Yeah, Rayan.
Oh.
What do we feel about the fact that it's all celebrities now and not half and half?
I like it. I prefer it. I'd rather, it's either one or the other, right?
I wouldn't go as far as I prefer it, but I'm fine with it. Partly because for me, this is just a regular cast, because I know 2 of these people, and that's Ekin and John Burko. I don't have the slightest clue who anyone else except Parvati maybe is. Yeah,
but they act like celebrities. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
It's not about whether you know them or not. They have a certain air to them.
I guess it's interesting in that they're more daring, because they know that because the way they approach this game is different. Rather than approach it from a survival point of view, I think they approach it from a attention point of view. And they know that in order to perhaps get more attention in this game, you need to be more daring. So they try bigger gambits. They try to be more ambitious in the way they play the game than you would typically in the UK. Because in the UK, you're more focused on staying for longer if you can, because you think about your experience as well. And so you want to be really careful about how you play.
I think money plays a factor into that too, though, doesn't it? It's like, okay, they don't really need it as much as a regular cast. And I think that's why you're there. I don't even think you think about the money, but they've already been on TV and know how it is, and they've got the experience. And I feel like it when we had normal cast there, I feel like they sort of sank in a little bit compared, and it was sort of unbalanced in type of gameplay and being able to know how to be on TV, basically. But I prefer it just because it's like a celebrity version, and then we have the normal version in the UK. Obviously, there's going to be a UK celebrity version, apparently, but we'll see what happens there.
Anyways, on that note, she will be back in a few days. I want to say next week, but let's be real. We're just about to record the next episode, so I'll just put it out whenever I fancy.
Did you say fancy? Fancy? Fancy. Whenever I fancy. That was beautiful. I love that.
Should we come back very soon to discuss then? And by that point, England would have lost the Euro, so it'll be good timing.
Probably. Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's get back in the second half.
Like, we'll be back very soon. We'll ask questions like, will it be Parvati's downfall? Will the Brother Alliance go a long way? And will Wilfred be a surprise late addition to the UK Series 3 coming in episode 6, just like Kate? So many questions we'll try to answer next week. Now, you know the drill. If you like the show, give us a 5-star review, give us a like, follow us to the Tirade, or share your best strategies on social media. My name is Ryan. You can follow me, but only if you're Parvati. I don't want to hear from anyone else, to be honest. Parvati, I love you. Marry me.
You can follow me at Wilfred Webster. I didn't have anything else to say.
I'm Ivan. You can follow me at Ryan is Tacky with his love of stupid knockoff songs on Instagram.
No, actually, I've got a new one. You can follow me at...
Too late.
John Bergen needs an Instagram.
What did you call him?
Bergen.
John Bergen, yeah. He's a specialist in backpacks. Anyway, from all of us here, see you very soon and goodbye.
Bye-bye, driver.